right, guys, welcome in to another edition of the Daytona Beach Motor Mouths. I'm Ryan Pritt. That handsome fellow over there in the Schlitz hat is Ken Willis. How you doing today, Ken?
I'm having a ball. How's that? Quick.
Your preparation with
the stress. It's hard though. It's not a squeeze, not a stress relief. I don't know where this thing came from. It's hard enough to hurt you, but it's got a little soft coating to it, so it'll be a soft hurt, I guess.
Well, maybe you could send it to. Maybe you could send it to Kyle Busch. He looked like he needed a little stress release yesterday, and we're going to get to that. But
I think he looked like he released it to me. So yeah.
But first, of course, we have to do our duties and what all of our fans have come to expect from us. Yesterday, by the way, was just a banner day in sports watching between the NCAA tournament, NASCAR, pretty good golf event coming down to the wire right here in Florida. So I'll just assume you weren't into March Madness much yesterday, but we have to ask, what was better, the NASCAR race or golf?
Well, I actually am watching more basketball this year than I have in the last 15 years combined. So I did see a couple of ball games that were pretty damn good.
Okay.
And dramatic. I want to say I'm going to give it to the golf because it was such a feel-good story. You had a fellow who hadn't won in 10 or 12 years out there, Peter Malnati, and it came right down to the wire. He had a favor done for him. The guy he was tied with bogeyed, I think, the 17th, which gave him a 2-shot cushion at 18. But his emotional interview afterwards was, it's worth watching. It really tells you what he had been through. So I think the emotional win of a long shot comeback type story over William Byron winning again and looking like he's probably going to win 6 or 8 times this year. That's not to say the race went without its moments. I mean, the Kyle Busch thing, which we'll talk about. I tell you what was amazing, though, the Saturday race, the Xfinity race. The last lap of that race with Van Gisbergen and Austin Hill, I believe, is who he knocked out of the way. And then Kyle Larson picked up pieces. It reminded me of Richard Petty winning the 79 500. Except the 2 guys that wrecked in front of him didn't fight afterwards, at least not that I know of. So anyway, yeah, that was Saturday. It was good stuff. And Sunday had its moments too.
I think Larson restarted like 10th too, right? It wasn't just those 2. He marched through there, and that guy can drive a race car pretty good, Ganny.
A little bit.
Yeah. Sunday's race, you mentioned it, and I'm still, me and the rest of America, we're all still waiting on the formal apology from you to William Byron about your power ranking 9th place showing for Bad Billy Byron, and all he does is continue just to take that personally. I think if we got to interview him, he would probably say that's his number one driving force in his performances. But the more he does this, man, the harder it gets to pick anyone else really as the best guy in the sport right now. I mean, he's making a case about once every 3 or 4 weeks, isn't he?
Yeah, and the critically acclaimed NASCAR Speed Freaks, which you'll find at the news journal's online website, as well as some of the finer newspapers across our land. I mentioned, I think, wrote about the possibility of this becoming the William Byron era or mini era in NASCAR. So, but boy, I tell you, it would really help if he had a protagonist or an antagonist, I guess is what I'm looking for. If what made the Gordon Earnhardt era so great, that rivalry so great, is because they were just looked upon as 2 distinctly different characters. And I'm not going to tell you which role between those 2, which role William Byron would fill, but I think that he's driving the proper car for the proper team in order to fill it. So, it would be neat. I mean, he's literally an Eagle Scout, and I'd forgotten that. I was looking up some stuff on him today, and I'd totally forgotten the fact he literally was an Eagle Scout, and did not surprise me one bit when I read that. Just a great kid, but he's just. He's not what you call he's not a Curtis Turner, Dale Earnhardt. He's not cut from the old NASCAR mold that the stereotype that we all know and love so much.
Well, another critically acclaimed piece that's a lot less read than Speed Freaks is Through the Gears. And as you'll learn about when you read it here in just a few minutes, and as you guys will learn,
no.
I actually touched on this very subject this week, and I thought it was quite fitting. You got William Byron grinning, and I mean absolutely no shade to William Byron at all. He's a great driver, but just like you said, personality-wise, he's definitely on the brighter side of things. And then the camera cuts immediately from him, and here comes Kyle Busch knifing through traffic on pit road, just slams hat brim to hat brim with Christopher Bell and goes on a tirade that unfortunately we missed most of. But at the end, it not to use the wrong words on podcasts, basically promised to wreck him. And you and I've
Yeah.
talked about it a couple of times in recent years. Bush's transformation into the hated guy, into the guy who's getting all the cheers, has been a little weird, but it's happened. And
Yeah.
it was almost like NASCAR was begging for a villain on Sunday, and Kyle Busch delivers. And I think he had some beef. Bell definitely got into that corner deep, but to see Busch come back into that kind of form, that was a kind of oddly refreshing, wasn't it? Did you feel that way too?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think in the old days, the old guys used to say he was treating him like a Dutch uncle. He was he was none too pleased with William Byron. And I've never had a Dutch uncle, so I don't know. So I had a Dutch master a couple of times, and that didn't make me feel good either. But yeah, it was something, and it was if you go and find the video of it, and the look on Christopher Bell's face was just a look of I'm just going to stand here and
Yep.
take this. Yeah.
Yep.
And he did. And then at the end, Kyle says, "Have I ever wrecked you?" And Bell says, "No." And Kyle says, "Well, it's coming."
That's one. Yeah. Well done. Well skated.
Yeah.
We're paraphrasing there on what
Yeah.
Kyle said, but and he did.
Unfortunately, though, before we leave this, unfortunately, those guys often cool down in the week ahead. So we may not. So the aftermath of this may be for naught. We'll see.
Yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't touch on this real quick. I don't know if you saw this morning. The Sports Business Journal put out a story this morning quoting Denny Hamlin as saying that he may very well end up driving for his own team. And he said the only way it would be in a full-time capacity is if the 2311 cars can match JGR cars in performance, but hinted at the end that day is coming quickly. He just signed a multi-year extension last year, although those details weren't revealed. So, do you think we see a day when Denny Hamlin is a full-time driver for 2311?
I've always sort of assumed that would come eventually, either full time or part time status. But yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know what the contract status is with Gibbs. What if multi year could be 2 years, and so that's not I don't know. But these
Yeah.
things also they're sponsor driven too. If FedEx was to go away, guess what? That's what happened to Kyle Busch with over there with the M&Ms when M&M's went away, Kyle Busch had to go away from Gibbs. So, but they'll be all right at Gibbs. I think they're going to be fine. What Denny would do with driving under the 2311 is, I mean, who knows? I'm sure he would do pretty well wherever he is, but I don't think that's going to be earth shattering one way or another, because I just fully anticipate he'd be driving that for that team eventually someday, and probably sooner than later.
Yeah. Well, looking ahead a little bit, we're heading to Richmond this week from the road course to the short track. Recent history says another JGR playground, by the way. Last 12 events, Hamlin and Truex have combined for 10 top 10s, led 863 laps in the last 6 races there. You look at Phoenix, which is kind of this track's sister track, and it was kind of that way too. So, Toyota domination this week, and who do you like?
Oh, I think we know my record here, don't we?
Well, the folks don't, but I do. It's not good. I'm hoping the Hard Rock Bet folks don't know either.
I'm gonna let you go first, and I'm gonna ponder this one for a second. You go first.
All right, I think we saw at Bristol, Denny Hamlin held off Martin Truex. I think we get the opposite. Taking Martin Truex Jr. on Sunday.
I'm gonna go Ty Gibbs. I think I'm gonna say it until he wins. Didn't we make that pact a few weeks ago? One of us was gonna keep picking him until he wins.
Yeah, you've got him, and I've got Brad Keselowski at Daytona. And those are the two that we will just continue to hammer. And quickly, while we've got a free second here, where are we headed to on the PGA Tour this weekend? Do you know?
They leave Florida and they head to Texas for 2 weeks. I think it's Houston and then Dallas, unless it's Dallas and then Houston. And then 3 weeks from now will be the Masters.
Yeah.
A tradition unlike any other. Hello, friends.
which may tell you how eventful COTA was, that we had a minute left over to talk golf next week as opposed to what just happened. So with that being said, that does wrap us up. I'm Ryan Pritt. That's Ken Willis. Check out all of our all of our stories, including the ever fruitful Speed Freaks at news-journalonline.com. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.